Sorry, I should have introduced myself. I go by a lot of names. Some of them are actually a bit cruel and hurtful to me. But I like you, Riri, so you can call me Mephisto.
Mephisto.
Hello.
Oh my God.
Did I? I think I stole the job.
Except I'm still on that train. Choo-choo.
Let me tell you, the fire down here feels so warm.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he would never arrive in the MCU. I believe he's with us always, watching.
I'm over here trying to dance around the plot like this.
Having to dance around the plot like this? Sounds like Anthony Ramos is hiding something big here.
It's me. It's me, Mephisto. Oh, look, the blue dungeon was hell after all. Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Mephisto is confirmed! Vindication! We did it, Joe! That's Mephisto, that's Mephisto, that's Mephisto, that's Mephisto! Mephisto finally arrived, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, of all places, in the finale of Marvel Television's Ironheart series, bringing an end to a satanic advent that truly began here on New Rockstars over 5 years ago, with rumors for WandaVision that really started with cast members saying that a major cameo would appear at the end of that series, which then manifested into a Mephisto train, choo-choo, that derailed several times, yet I could never bring myself to deboard it. I kept the dark flame alive. I braved countless rounds of ridicule online, and it all led to right now, this moment. So in this video, I will break down the ending to Marvel's Ironheart, why Mephisto showed up in this series, the clues that set all of this up, and some details in these scenes that tell us how Mephisto's arrival changes potentially everything in the MCU. But make sure to watch Jessica Clemens' in-depth breakdown of the final 3 episodes that's gonna come tomorrow. In this video, I'm just gonna talk about the Mephisto of it all. And again, Jessica's been breaking down Ironheart for us, and her analysis has been so good. Go watch her breakdown of the first 3 episodes, and you can watch our break room after shows. But really, this series gave us clues that Mephisto would appear. The episode title poster included an M highlighted in red, and the marketing heavily hinted someone would finally be arriving on this show. Early episodes included clues like Nina Simone's Sinnerman playing over shots of Parker Robbins with the particular lyrics of "Go to the Devil," and behind Riri in another shot was a wall full of posters for Faust, which is one of the known monikers for the devil, and the origin of the term Faustian bargain or deal with the devil, similar to the contracts that Parker Robbins had been forcing tech CEOs into signing. That, plus all the demonic whispering from the shadows, the Gregorian chants, the veiny skin curses, and various talking about desires. This series had Mephisto written all over it. Riri Williams and Natalie's investigations of the piece of Parker Robbins' mystical hood brings them to Zelma Stanton, daughter of Riri's mother Ronnie's friend Madeline, both of whom turn out to be sorceresses with ties to Kamartaj. Zelma tells Riri that the indestructible cloak has its own heat source and ties to an ancient dark magic, and it has a 50% chance or less of being connected to the demon Dormammu, who is the source of the hood's power in the comics, and the demon we saw in the 2016 Doctor Strange film. Parker suspects that Riri was involved in his cousin John's death at the heirloom hit, and when Riri left Ezekiel Stane's tech behind on that job and got him imprisoned, Parker and the crew break Zeke out and fulfill his dreams of replacing his parts with bionic implants. That also gives Parker secret admin control over his body. And then when they all attack Riri at a White Castle, Zeke lets her live. And in the final episode, we learn that the night Parker and John had tried to rob Parker's father Arthur's mansion, it turned violent and Parker fled down a tunnel. And it was here when a figure in the shadows presents himself.
I do not like your odds. There's no need for that.
This figure magically conjures a door to Parker's pizza parlor hideout, Desperitos, and begs Parker to let him help him to take the step. We also hear that devilish violin riff.
I can't.
That sounds like the classic fiddle that the devil is associated with playing. Inside, here sits Sacha Baron Cohen with long hair and a beard that look reddened. He speaks in an American accent here, but he initially only identifies himself as a fan as he eats pizza and talks about Parker's unfulfilled potential, and then he silences and freezes a very loud family. One detail that tripped me up in this episode is that they are eating a square cut pie that is meant, I think, to be Chicago-style tavern pizza. A lot of you think that Chicago-style means deep dish. It doesn't. If you live in Chicago, like my wife's family does, you You know this, but thin crust tavern style is equally, if not more beloved by locals as a true Chicago pizza. And it kind of looks like Mephisto on his plate is eating a slice of deep dish, while the pie that they're sharing is tavern style. At least it's weird that the slice he serves Parker is the first slice from that pie, when the slice Mephisto eats comes from another pizza. Also, the crust of this circular pie is way too thick to be true tavern style. In true tavern style, the cheese goes all the way out to the edge of the pizza. It doesn't have much of a crust. This kind of looks like it was just a takeout pizza that was just square cut. Anyway, I blame Mephisto for all of this. Mephisto asks Parker what he most desires, and the audio effect on desires reminds me of Black Phillip and Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Now, let me ask you, what is it that you most desire? What dost thou want?
Parker says he wants to be stupid, disgusting, greasy rich, and Mephisto knows he's talking about being richer than his father Arthur, and Mephisto offers to give Parker the tools to get himself everything he deserves. Parker wants to be king.
So be it.
And what's in it for you?
Oh, something you won't even miss.
Mephisto offers his hand and Parker shakes it. Mephisto gives him his cloak, saying he'll be in touch. So back in the present day, Riri powers her new suit with Zelma's magic, and that erased AI Natalie, meaning Riri lost the closest thing to the memory of her dead friend. As Riri battles a Zeke controlled by Parker, a Mephisto appears to Parker again, now speaking in a British accent, Sacha Baron Cohen's natural voice.
Oh, I've been a little bit busy. You see, you're not my only client.
This will be a very important line as we look to who Mephisto's been working with in the MCU as of late. Mephisto is now more forward with Parker.
I said, be careful how you sprint to me. I stuck to our agreement, to every letter of it.
And Mephisto compares Parker to this historical figure.
Like a modern day Shakespeare. He was also a twat.
So confirmed! In the MCU, William Shakespeare made a deal with Mephisto, and William Shakespeare's soul is burning in hell, if you believe in that kind of thing. Many throughout history have pondered if the source of Shakespeare's artistic genius might have come from a deal with the devil. Others have speculated that Shakespeare might have bought or stolen works from other contemporary writers like Christopher Marlowe, whose play Dr. Faustus was actually one of the earliest examples of the Faust legend. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. There's a normal feeling we all have now and then. Where you are isn't necessarily where you want to be, but when you're so focused on the gap between expectation and reality that it gets in the way of your life, it's okay to ask for help navigating those emotions. If you're feeling therapy might be useful, using BetterHelp can help you get started. A good therapist helps you see that you're not behind in life, you're simply on your own unique timeline. They help you recognize that your identity isn't fixed by some arbitrary deadline, but constantly evolving as you grow. This perspective shift alone can be so beneficial. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easy. Just head to betterhelp.com/newrockstars, fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5-star rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description, scan the QR code, or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Mephisto threatens to replace Parker with someone more appreciative, but says that if Parker can hold on to the hood, he'll consider giving him more power. But this doesn't work out because Riri beats Zeke and then fights Parker in a magic versus magic battle. Parker goes demonic, but it's not enough. Riri tricks him with a false AI projection and removes his hood. Now Riri finds herself back in the pizza parlor where Mephisto sits once again eating a pizza, but now the flat pizza isn't even square cut. If I were Riri, I'd be like, this guy clearly doesn't know what good Chicago pizza is. 86 this motherfucker. He asks if she's hungry.
You hungry? Always.
Now the closed caption here says both in unison, but we don't see Riri's mouth move. So it's kind of like he read her thoughts and joined her to answer that he too is always hungry. So that's Mephisto's secret cap. He's always hungry. Hungry for souls. That apparently is what he said Parker Robbins wouldn't miss. His soul. He sucks people's souls at the end of the day. Mephisto calls Riri's suit a goofy Transformers costume, which might be a meta dig from this trans-dimensional demon at Anthony Ramos's other franchise. Mephisto makes the suit vanish and offers her a pinky promise to return it after they talk. The camera twists around the two of them as he says he's been watching her, admiring her as the exceptional, terrific, the dogged, someone inquisitive and curious. And he says that he wants to help the unseen, the unheard. And we see Mephisto stirring his coffee, and maybe a deliberate nod to the famous tea stirring logo of Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions for all of his horror titles. And in the reflection of that teaspoon, we see Mephisto's true comic accurate reflection. Red skin, glowing yellow eyes, a fangy grin. If Mephisto does ever reappear in something like Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars, I think this is what he will look like. Mephisto says,
Well, out of the Forbes 100 richest list, I've made a deal with 100 of them, plus 14 kings, 3 popes, and also a beetle, Ringo.
So I'll come back to this list in a second, but the things Mephisto says gives us some rules of people he has made deals with. The exceptional, the terrific, the dogged, someone inquisitive and curious, the unseen, the unheard. People who have attained great success despite arguably not being truly naturally gifted, but more importantly, not privileged enough at birth to attain that success on their own. And that detail is an important distinction as we look to who might have benefited from this guy's help. And as the episode comes to a close, we learn that Riri does actually make a deal with Mephisto to bring Natalie back to life, not as an AI, but as a living, breathing person who has no memory of how she died or what the AI version of herself went through in these episodes. It is a dark, dark ending that shows that Riri has literally sold her soul to the devil on behalf of a friend. And it leaves us with questions over what exactly this means. Is Mephisto the devil in every traditional sense of what it means to be the devil in our world's Christian theology? Like, is there a classic fire and brimstone hell where these souls will be damned too? I mean, we saw places that looked a lot like that on the other side of portals in She-Hulk and in Multiverse of Madness. Or is this Mephisto a separate fictional demon who just mimics our common cultural understanding of Satan and operates under similar rules? So some past MCU appearances of Mephisto that I think we can now consider to be actual Mephisto sightings retroactively. In 2012's Avengers, Mephisto first appeared, barely noticeable on Nick Fury's paperwork that he hands to Captain America, because in Jim Starlin's Infinity Gauntlet comics lore, the Infinity Stones and Thanos are tied with Mephisto. He was first introduced to Marvel Comics as a cosmic villain to Silver Surfer, and now that we have Silver Surfer showing up in Fantastic Four First Steps, who knows? These things might connect. Now, we should be clear that Mephisto was not referenced in WandaVision, even though I saw plenty of clues that led me to believe that they were. Matt Shackman and Jack Schaefer have since said that Mephisto was not on their vision board, he was not intended to be referenced, and that those were just coincidental. But in Thor Love and Thunder, Zeus said in the background that there was a contest to see who won the contest for most human lives sacrificed in the name of a god, and he said that the winner was Satan. Technically, that was our first mention of who this guy was, and our first implication that he might be a cosmic god. But in She-Hulk, Madison got drunk and went to what we now think was hell, and a demon goat named Jake helped her escape. And the courtroom art that ended that episode, Jake had a "Hi, my name is" name tag that many said looks like a shirt that I used to wear in a lot of new Rockstars videos at that time. And of course, in Agatha, Jennifer talked about Agatha's secretive past and said that her son might have been, quote, an agent of Mephisto. Technically, that was the first time the word Mephisto was spoken out loud in a Marvel title. So this leads us to the question of who else did Mephisto make deals with in the MCU? And what does it mean to make a deal with Mephisto? Specifically, we're looking for people who were underprivileged but naturally gifted in certain ways. People who might have been the most curious and inquisitive to follow someone down a dark rabbit hole. So he did mention the Forbes 100 richest, and you may remember how in the MCU, both Tony Stark and Pepper Potts have graced the cover of Forbes. However, that may not be the case in the present day of when he made that pitch to Parker Robbins. Also, Mephisto clearly seeks the unseen, and Tony Stark was born into wealth. I don't think Tony Stark would have needed to make a deal with Mephisto to attain his success. However, people in his orbit might have been just jealous enough of Tony Stark to make that kind of deal. So I think Quentin Beck seems like exactly the kind of candidate Mephisto would have made a deal with. I mean, there is an interpretation you could make of the Ironheart series that anyone who pushes the boundaries of AI projections that far might have been influenced by Mephisto, and that Mephisto could be the source of all 8K resolution AI that exists in any universe. Now, he did confirm some actual historical figures were people that he made deals with: William Shakespeare, Ringo Starr, 14 kings, and 3 popes. So of the 14 kings, we're probably going to look at kings who were not dynastically connected, but rather kings who just kind of luckily fell into that success. So you're not looking at anyone from the Windsor family or the Tudor family, but rather people who just kind of married into that success. Poor Ringo Starr. It's more of a diss at Ringo Starr's talent, and it seems like Ringo Starr might have made a deal with Mephisto to oust Pete Best from the Beatles. We've talked about William Shakespeare. Now, which 3 popes? There have been a lot of corrupt popes, but if you go back to the Middle Ages, it's pretty frightening to see what some of them did. There's Pope Leo X, there's Pope Alexander VI, there's Pope Urban VI, who is involved in the Great Schism and said that the people he tortured screams weren't loud enough. I gotta say, while the Catholic Church has a long history of corruption in the papacy during the Middle Ages especially, it's pretty ballsy for Disney to suggest that even recent popes could have made deals with the devil, especially now that the new pope comes from Chicago. Now, if not Tony Stark, I do think the implication is that lesser talented heads of industry in Tony Stark's orbit might have made these deals. Justin Hammer, Aldrich Killian, could have made deals with Mephisto. We meet some tech CEOs on this show that seem to have known Parker Robin's history, specifically the CEOs of Tunnel and Heirloom. They might have made past deals with Mephisto. We should also note that real world tech CEOs like Elon Musk and Larry Ellison exist in the MCU. And on the Forbes 100 list in the present day of the MCU, one of those guys is probably still on it. There's also Wen Wu, leader of the Ten Rings, someone whose origin finding the Ten Rings in the crater was never actually shown, but we do know that he heard mysterious whispers from some soul sucker dweller in darkness who could read his thoughts and promised to deliver his greatest desires, similar to what Riri Williams wants. That definitely lines up thematically with what Mephisto offers on this show. Now, a question should be, did Mephisto influence people in the MCU outside of Earth? Because he is technically a cosmic villain in the comics. Like, did Mephisto give Thanos the tools to find the stones? An obvious candidate is Agatha Harkness, because Jennifer said an agent of Mephisto, as if that's the kind of thing witches like her had seen in their lifetimes. Could Agatha have made a deal with Mephisto to find other witches to drain their power? Is a relationship like this something that could be explored in Agatha season 2? I have to imagine that Mephisto and Death know each other, that they have some kind of relationship. I mean, get Aubrey Plaza and Sacha Baron Cohen in a scene together. I want to see what happens when those two talk. Mephisto does say that he's been busy lately. Could Sharon Carter have made a deal with Mephisto in her rise to power as a power broker of Madripoor? We got to talk about Spider-Man. Spider-Man Brand New Day is getting its title from an era of the comics that comes between One More Day and One Moment in Time, both of which deal heavily with Mephisto toying with Peter Parker's reality, giving Peter Parker the exact kind of deals with the exact kind of sense of humor that Mephisto presents with in this Ironheart series. Along with John Bernthal as Frank Castle, Punisher, could Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto be one of these other MCU characters who shows up in Spider-Man Brand New Day? Either way, Sacha Baron Cohen is a big name, and I imagine that Marvel Studios has got to have some plans to bring him back. If not in Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars, Mephisto being active in this universe makes it all the more likely that Ghostrider is coming sooner rather than later. Mephisto being busy lately, I think, is most likely a reference to Johnny Blaze. We're gonna have a lot to say about Mephisto in the future. I'm just happy now to be done with this Advent period and to just be in this nativity period. I will say it's a little odd that he shows up in an Ironheart series, but I think putting him in a show that doesn't on the surface deal so much with the occult and with witchcraft, even though going to the family of Zelma, it absolutely takes us there, especially with that post-credit scene of Parker Robbins going to her and asking for her help. It does show that Mephisto can have an influence on any character in this universe. He is a type of universal evil that defies genre. And I've always said that's what makes him such an interesting character to have in this world. It makes the MCU a richer, creepier place. And I, for one, have been ready for that for 5 years. Comment down below with your thoughts, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Frederick Price, who supports us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.